We are the Porcelain Twins. We recently had our civil rights, all freedoms, and liberties violated here in Portland, Oregon by the Portland Police, Providence Hospital, Legacy Meridian Hospital, and Project Respond in an attempt to silence us with the use of Oregon Statute 426, Involuntary Commitment Services. Authorities in Portland were able to use this law on us after we went to the emergency room for being poisoned by gang stalkers and hate groups in a very well planned out conspiracy to destroy our life and murder us. You will find this law in every state across the nation under different names. To find out what this law is in your state, put in a Google search for involuntary commitment services with your state in the search. This law will silence people, take their freedom of speech, right to bear arms, right to choose their own health care, and many other rights away. Here is the law in a nutshell. Oregon Statute 426 allows a person to be treated for a mental illness against their will if they are experiencing an emotional disturbance and are imminently dangerous to themselves or others or unable to care for their basic needs. To be committed, a person must meet the above standards in a court hearing where critical information is presented in the form of testimony in front of a judge and the person considered for commitment. If an individual is committed, he or she may receive involuntary treatment for up to 180 days. Oregon Revised Statute 426 provides for involuntary treatment of individuals who are either dangerous or else unable to meet their basic needs due to mental illness. This legal process is known as civil commitment and begins with a notice of mental illness filed in court. This notice is required whenever a person is placed on an emergency hold in a hospital, or it may be given in the form of a two-party petition. A mental health investigator, as well as an individual and their families, to gather information and determine whether to recommend that a civil commitment hearing take place within the circuit court. The investigator's job is to ensure due process for individuals placed on a hospital hold to make certain that their civil rights are not suspended wrongfully or for any longer than necessary. If an individual is committed, he or she may receive involuntary treatment for up to 180 days. Because a court-ordered hospitalization is a significant infringement on a person's constitutional rights, due process of law is required. None of the due process required guidelines were followed in regard to Statute 426 being used on us, and there were no legal grounds to use this law. Our family was not contacted. Statute 426 is unconstitutional and should be banned. If Statute 426 is corruptly used on a person, as it was on us, the state of Oregon has the right to take all your freedoms and civil rights away. You will find this law in every state across the nation. In California, this law falls under Section 5150 of the Welfare and Institutions Code, which allows an adult who is experiencing a mental health crisis to be involuntarily detained for a 72-hour psychiatric hospitalization when evaluated to be a danger to others or to himself or herself or gravely disabled. This is what was used on Kanye West when he supported President Trump publicly. In Washington state, the basic definitions and legal process by which someone may be committed can be found in a document known as the Revised Code of Washington, RCW. Title 71 contains the laws related to mental illness, and Chapter 71.05 holds the laws that govern involuntary commitment. Texas has civil commitment laws that establish criteria for determining when involuntary treatment is appropriate for individuals with severe mental illness who cannot seek care voluntarily. Texas law allows for the use of court-ordered treatment in the community known as assisted outpatient treatment. Involuntary commitment services laws create a fascist police state and is the modern-day witch hunt on civilians who pose a threat to exposing any sort of corruption. It stifles freedom of speech and the truth from being heard and takes many rights away from innocent citizens, such as ourselves. The purpose of this video is to remove this law from all states in America because it can be used maliciously and corruptly against innocent law-abiding citizens, as it was on us. Why would someone want to lock us up, to shut us up? Who is behind the plan to destroy our life? Why would anyone want to harm us? We are the Porcelain Twins, world-famous performance artists who've traveled the world performing our theatrically stylized, choreographed, controversial, fetish burlesque shows, influencing mainstream pop culture where our image has been stolen to create one of the biggest pop stars in the world. From 2007 to 2008, we performed at an exclusive nightclub theater in New York City with celebrities in the house on a nightly basis. Madonna had her birthday party at this nightclub, and we met her. The time we spent in New York City performing is where many pop stars hijacked our image, style, and shows, and one in particular invented her entire style and image after our likeness. It's not too hard to figure out who this hack is. We all know that pop stars are strategically manufactured by the music industry and are known for stealing from underground artists to create their pop sensation money-making machine. Regardless of all of our success as world-famous performance artists, we spent 22 years in the adult entertainment industry dancing in strip clubs from 1997 to 2019 to make ends meet when we were not touring with our shows. We are whistleblowers and writers currently penning our second book about the corrupt and illegal prostitution taking over the strip club industry in Portland, Oregon, and all over the nation. We've written 2 books about our experiences. Our first book is a tell-all about our life from our first memories and how we entered into the adult entertainment industry. We expose the truth about the strip club industry that you do not see in the music videos. Our book was originally titled The Porcelain Twins, Our Life in the Sex Industry. It has since been renamed Life is a Lap Dance. If you want to know the truth about the strip club industry, read our first book, Life is a Lap Dance. Our second book, currently in process, will be even more revealing. Now back to Who Wants to Destroy Our Life. We have ruffled a lot of feathers along the way. That was terrible. I know. Okay. You gotta be like, now back to Who Wants to Destroy Our Life. We've ruffled a lot of feathers along the way. Now back to Who Wants to Destroy Our Life. We've ruffled a lot of feathers along the way. In 2008, we exposed a public figure from one of the wealthiest and most powerful families in New York City. Google. For his sexual harassment, misconduct toward us, and many other countless women who performed at his theater. However, none of the other women had the courage to come forward. There was no Me Too movement at that time. We have openly called out celebrities such as Beyonce and Lady Gaga for stealing our unique style, performance art shows, and copying our image and likeness repeatedly, as well as Dita Von Teese for stealing one of our trademark shows and performing it for a documentary at the Crazy Horse Theater in Paris, and Britney Spears copying our film The Masquerade for her circus tour video stage show. We have been outspoken about the illegal prostitution going on in the Portland strip clubs and the unfairness of women having to pay to work, which we wrote about in our first book, Life is a Lap Dance. In 2017, we were poisoned by a dancer at a downtown strip club we worked at and thought we were going to die of a heart attack on our kitchen floor. We had a poison antidote that would save our life in our kitchen cupboard. When we exposed this dancer to the club owner, as well as the prostitution taking place in the club, and asked for cameras, we were fired. Owners, dancers, and employees now accept prostitution. Accept or allow? Accept. They've accepted it. Unallowed it, accepted and allowed.
Okay.
Okay.
Owners, dancers, and employees now allow and accept prostitution in all Portland strip clubs.
The strip club industry in Portland, Oregon has become completely unregulated, and because of this, the women are no longer protected. What was once an industry heavily monitored by OLCC, Oregon Liquor Control Commission, was now an industry with no checks and balances, where prostitution and sexual services are now the norm.
With prostitution comes pimps, gangs, and other dangerous elements.
The strip club industry in Portland, Oregon has become completely unregulated, and because of this, the women are no longer protected. What was once an industry heavily monitored by OLCC, Oregon Liquor Control Commission, is now an industry with no checks and balances, where prostitution and sexual services are now the norm. With prostitution comes pimps, gangs, and other dangerous elements. Many strippers are in gangs. They are gang members. Along with gangs comes pimps. Many strippers are in gangs. They are actually gang members. Pimps associated with gang members and other members of the inner circle who take over clubs, running out anyone they think will take the money away from their prostitutes working in the clubs.
Did that make sense?
No.
We also made the mistake of publicly voicing our political views in 2016 in support of Donald Trump during the elections before the landscape of the political hate groups was established. This created a lot of hate toward us in the strip club industry.
We are Trump supporters, and in 2016, during the elections, we blasted our political views on our Porcelain Twinz Facebook page. Little did we know we would become a target for the anti-Trump hate groups in the city of Portland.
We had no idea the extremes that would be taken toward our well-being, our livelihood, and our lives, and someone has a serious vendetta against us, or more than someone. For nearly 3 years since 2016, we've been stalked by a network of multiple gangs who have joined forces to harass, bully, and stalk us and attempted to murder us. This began after we met a male real estate developer in Orange County, California, who developed large commercial projects in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
We met him in a strip club in Orange County while we were traveling the country dancing in 2016. We knew him for less than 30 days. He soon revealed that he was in a high-profile motorcycle gang and involved in other criminal organizations, bribing politicians and judges to achieve his goals, suing his enemies, and paying the judges to always win in court. His investors were from overseas. Since crossing paths with this person in 2016 and exiting as quickly as we could, we have been targeted by his network of gangs that he pays to do his dirty work. The gangs and groups are part of a mob network who get paid to attack, stalk, and harass a specific target, which would be us. How do we know this? He told us how gang stalking works and how the gangs work together as a worldwide network. Because of this massive instant communication between the networks of gangs, no one ever gets away.
Once you become a target and are put on this list, most likely a bounty is placed on your head, and all of the networks of gangs and hate groups work together to hunt their target and achieve their goal of harm and possible death. Everyone gets involved, including your neighbors, because these hate groups canvass the neighborhood of their target and pay people to spy, harass, video, and bully you 24/7.
According to David Icke, George Soros is funding billions of dollars to these groups and networks all over the world. The hate groups are divided up into many different groups to look like legitimate activist groups, rallying behind their cause. The groups are designed to target all walks of life in society to cater to every preference. Some people like spirituality, others may like Antifa or Black Lives Matter, church organizations, or political groups. This way, the hate group movement is spread like a spider's web throughout society instantaneously with social media. Different groups for different classes of society, but they all are working as one large network. The group's members are all receiving payments to participate in the cause, and their cause may be to stalk, bully, harass, murder, harm, and be violent to any target on their list.
All of the gangs and hate groups are working together as a network in the thousands. It's unbelievable how this can happen to innocent people. They have infinite numbers of people and funding who are paid to participate. With financial incentives, these gangs and hate groups can make their target's life a living hell. This is how they control people they do not like in society.
These gangs and hate groups have attempted to cut off our financial resources by bullying and stalking us in large numbers while we were working inside of the strip clubs with the intent to murder us, bullying and stalking us out of the strip club industry permanently, because who wants to be just another dead stripper
On a strip club floor.
Nobody cares.
In January of 2019, the hate group stalking intensified to an all-time high. We were being aggressively bullied everywhere we went, from our gym to the grocery store.
On Thursday, March 28, 2019, when we were at the gym, our water in our locker was poisoned. Our locker had been broken into and we drank the water in our locker. This was a mistake. We instantly felt dizzy, woozy, lightheaded, and nauseous, and knew we had been poisoned. We poured a poison antidote packet we had with us into water and drank it. We put our clothes on, packed up all of our belongings, left the gym, and drove home quickly.
We had been dealing with a lot of aggressive behavior at our gym for several months. It was so obvious that a Ukrainian man in his mid-60s, who barely spoke any English, came into the sauna and showed us a series of self-defense moves. He apologized for the mean people. It was that obvious. We believe the hate groups were paying many people who worked at our gym and were members to harass, bully, video us, take photos of us in the sauna and private dressing room. We complained about all the cell phone use in the club and dressing room after being video recorded by a woman's child when we were coming out of the shower naked. We asked for our privacy to be protected. The gym put signs up prohibiting cell phones in the sauna, but people would still try to bring them in to create a confrontation. We canceled our membership after the poisoning incident.
When we arrived home from the gym after drinking the poisoned water, the symptoms of being poisoned were increasing. The nausea was intensifying. We drank another herbal packet and took 2 tablespoons of activated coconut charcoal and were terrified. Activated charcoal is in every emergency room in the nation, used as a poison and overdose remedy because it goes in and draws out the poison with its adsorbent structure, and is popular in the natural health community as a health tonic.
We drank a lot of water and went to our bedroom to lie down. Our bodies hurt all over. Something was terribly wrong.
On March 28th, the night that we were poisoned, we called our naturopathic doctor and asked him to see us, but he was concerned and suggested we go to the emergency room. We feared going to the emergency room and felt it was a risk, for the hate groups were at all levels in society, and we feared corruption even at the hospital, and we were right.
We made the decision to go to Legacy Meridian Hospital. When we walked into Legacy Meridian, we said we believed that we'd been poisoned and had been being stalked by hate groups that we believe were responsible. We were treated bizarrely at the hospital, and after an hour or so, we started feeling better and decided to go home. We did not feel that the hospital staff or doctors had our best interest in mind, but another agenda of their own.
Which we were right.
We saw an emergency room doctor at Legacy Meridian for 5 minutes, and we both had a terrible feeling come over us when he accused us of doing this to ourselves like we were criminals. The hospital took our blood work and said that they would be testing it for Tylenol and Advil, as if we did this to ourselves.
This was awful, to go to a hospital for help and be treated like a criminal. We overheard the doctor talking in strange hospital codes in regard to us. We did not feel safe and felt we were in danger. We miraculously started feeling better.
Like for real, we started feeling better.
Yeah.
So we got up and left the hospital before our test results came back. We do not treat with the ER doctor or sign anything giving them any legal right to treat us.
Being in the adult entertainment industry for 22 years, it is not uncommon for women to be stalked, murdered, stabbed, poisoned, or raped. So to be accused of trying to kill ourselves is unjust, to say the least. After we left the hospital, they called our cell phone to see if we were okay, and we assured them we were fine and feeling much better and going to bed. The following day, someone knocked on our front door. I, Heather, looked through the glass window of our front door, and there was a woman standing on our porch. I did not open the door. The woman said, "I want to talk to you for a moment. Can I please come in?" I said, "No, I'm fine. I am going to bed." They had also stopped by the night of the incident and knocked on the door, and we told them we were going to bed. So this is the second time someone stopped by our house and asked if we were okay. I had my small dog in my arms and said, "We are fine, thank you." I closed the curtain and went to bed. We slept for 12 hours, and when we woke up, we ate an amazing hearty vegan smoothie protein shake that many vegan bodybuilders are consuming and promoting. This is a staple in our vegan diet. We recovered from the day before with our amazing healthy food and herbal supplements and would rest for the day. Later in the day, a police officer knocked on our door and asked if she could come in and talk to us about the stalking reports that we had been filing with a police officer over the last several months. This is stop number 3. Amber said, "Oh, don't worry about that. We must have been mistaken."
He just turned Italian.
Okay. Amber said, "Oh, don't worry about that. We must have been mistaken. We are not interested in reporting anything. We are fine, feeling better, thank you." The officer said, "Can you open the door so I can give you my card?" Amber, who was wrapped in only a towel getting ready to take a shower, said, "Just drop it in the mail slot." The officer left. We also received 2 phone calls from police officers that were communicating with the emergency room doctor at Legacy Meridian Hospital. The officer was calling to check up on us, and we assured the officer that we had recovered fully, feeling much better now and back to normal. Terrified for our lives on many occasions, we had filed numerous police reports and had been communicating with an FBI agent out of New York City for over 2 years, trying to stop the gang stalking by these hate groups. We believe the FBI agent shared our emails with corrupt people within the system, and to cover his own hide, made reference to our mental health needing checked in our last communications. 2 days later, we were arrested, taken out of our backyard and kitchen at exactly 10:33 a.m. by 4 huge police officers and 2 Project Respond mental health workers who trespassed into our backyard by opening our backyard gate, entering our yard and home without our permission, claiming they had a warrant and a mental health hold for our arrest.
This was 2 days after going to the emergency room and recovering, and we were fine, 100%.
And being checked on multiple times, 3 or 4 different times, and called and all of it. It was a warm 70-degree sunny Saturday morning at 10:33 a.m. on March 30th, 2019. Anyone know about Masonic numerology? Please leave a comment.
We told the police officers and the Project Respond workers to leave, and they were not invited onto our property. They refused to leave, claiming we were a danger to ourselves and others, and that we had a mental hold placed on us by the emergency room doctor at Legacy Meridian Hospital and Project Respond. They entered our home and claimed they had a warrant, but they never gave us the warrant when we asked for it. They never showed any proof of having a warrant. Our dogs were terrified, traumatized, barking at the intruders in our home. The police handcuffed one of us like a criminal, humiliating us in our beautiful, pristine Laurelhurst neighborhood for all the neighbors to see. They put us in separate ambulances and strapped us both down with Velcro restraints in the middle of the street on a gurney. Before they did this, we offered to comply and go to the hospital in our car, but asked that they please not humiliate us by putting us unnecessarily in an ambulance. They refused. We were taken to the psych ward at Providence Portland Hospital. Our 2 5-pound Yorkie dogs would be left alone in our home with no arrangements made for their care. Dogs are sentient beings under Oregon law, and Project Respond and the Portland Police just abandoned our furry children. They would be left alone for 2 days without food or knowing how much water they had in their dog bowls.
I was put in the ambulance first and Amber second, separate ambulances at different times. They hauled me off first in handcuffs, so she was second. Amber was frazzled, asking the officers to allow our sister to have our house key. The officer took our house key from my hand and locked the door and put the key in his pocket. When Amber was in the ambulance, Amber asked where her house key was. The EMT worker retrieved the key from the officer and put the key in Amber's vest pocket and zipped it up. When Amber got to the hospital, they refused to take blood work and hooked her up to IVs, pumping her full of sedatives and lowering her electrolyte level to achieve the results they wanted to keep her there.
We were absolutely 100% fine before we went to the hospital. This day in particular, not the emergency room, we were poisoned, but we had fully recovered and we were totally normal, not completely normal, but we were totally feeling good, getting back to normal before they abruptly did this, which is why we wanted them to take our blood work before hooking us up to IVs, because we knew that they were doing something very sinister.
They did the same thing to me. I demanded that they take blood work before pumping me full of whatever was in the IV. They refused. They had an agenda to get the results they wanted to lower our electrolytes, which were fine before we were taken to the hospital. A social worker had Amber sign a piece of paper with the name of the person to give our house key to. The woman demanded that Amber give her home security code on the piece of paper. Amber refused to give the code for our home security alarm system, for you are never to give this code to anyone you do not know or trust. This is emphasized by the home security companies. We had already had issues with our security system being hacked on multiple occasions over the course of the last few months and had to have our entire system upgraded and replaced to the newest technology. This would resolve the issues of the stalker hackers who would sit outside of our house in their cars with their computers. We reported to Portland Police on multiple occasions. The social worker said Amber was being difficult and took her cell phone out of her hand, so she had no way of arranging pet care for our Yorkie dogs. We have multiple correspondences with an FBI agent and great details on the strategy of these groups and how they are operating above the law, and now just learned of a new strategy. Statute 426. Who did the FBI agent share our information with? The corrupt cops, the corrupt Portland FBI. Someone is not happy. Who are all the people involved in wanting to destroy our lives? This is unfortunate, for we have great respect for those who protect and serve our communities. We have had very positive experiences with police officers in Portland. However, this has tainted our trust in authorities in Portland, Oregon. Unfortunately, a few rotten apples can spoil the bunch. There are many amazing people serving our communities, from doctors, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, and more. But when the corruption hits, it goes deep.
Oregon Revised Statute 426 provides for the involuntary treatment of individuals who are either dangerous or else unable to meet their basic needs due to a mental illness. This legal process is known as civil commitment and begins with a notice of a mental illness filed in court. This notice is required whenever a person is placed on an emergency hold in a hospital, or it may be given in the form of a two-party petition. A mental health investigator will then work with hospitals, social workers, and other treatment professionals, as well as individuals and their families, to gather information and determine whether to recommend that a civil commitment hearing take place within the circuit court. The investigator's job is to ensure due process for individuals placed on a hospital hold, to make certain that their civil rights are not suspended wrongfully or for any longer than necessary. If an individual is committed, he or she may receive involuntary treatment for up to 180 days.
On a side note, when 5150 was used on Kanye West, he was held, I think probably for 180 days. He was held for quite a while.
I don't know how long that is.
Anyway, it doesn't matter how long he was held. The point is, he said it took him over a year to recover from the incident, whatever they did to him in there.
This law is dangerous for people who are estranged from their family, as we are. A lot of our family members we do not speak with. We have had a very rocky relationship with many of our family members due to their addictions, lifestyle choices, and violent behavior. We have had to separate ourselves from most of our family for our own well-being. We feel that we have been put on a list, bounties have been placed on our heads, and people have been paid to harass, bully, and harm our animals and us. In November of 2018, our 12-year-old 5-pound Yorkie was poisoned and murdered by these hate groups after she ate poisoned pumpkin seeds in our backyard, which we later found. When we walk our dogs in the neighborhood, we're constantly being accosted by aggressive dogs or ran off the sidewalk by people. We live in the Laurelhurst neighborhood.
We live in the Laurelhurst neighborhood lynch mob, where Catholic churches are abundant and the Catholic school is a few blocks from our home. Our once friendly neighbors are now spies and bullies after the hate groups canvassed our neighborhood and offered the payday to push out people in society that are not in alignment with their political, moral, or religious views. We have been stalked 24/7, hours a day by these gang stalkers and hate groups posed as regular civilians. They work in large networks and recruit and pay democratic citizens. They canvass neighborhoods, and we have experienced harassment from our once friendly neighbors. These group stalkers, which may be your neighbors, communicate with cell phones on our whereabouts. Wherever we go, aggressive, intimidating bullies and stalkers in large groups at the grocery store, gym, or our dog walk meet us. They try to destroy our lives and have tried to cut off most of our financial resources and violated our personal and private space in our everyday activities by spying, following, videoing, and monitoring our every move.
A few days after we were released from the corrupt hospital, we had a package on our porch delivered by the U.S. mail to a name and address that was not ours or anyone's in the neighborhood. It was a package of blue medical gloves, stated on the outside of the package. On our dog walk, there have been blue gloves on the ground, and at the grocery store, employees come bag our groceries with blue gloves on. Blue gloves represent the psych ward. This is all strategically psychological harassment. On numerous occasions, people pull up in their cars and get out of their cars in their scrubs during our dog walk.
It's very strategically planned.
Impeccable timing on their behalf. The connected network of our whereabouts through cell phone communication is how they are doing this. We believe our neighbors have hidden cameras pointed at our house because even when we go on late night dog walks, when everyone is asleep, the stalkers come out and try to run us over when we're crossing the quiet street and slam on their brakes, insinuating that they are going to get out of their car and harm us. These groups have infinite financial resources. They may even approach your estranged family members to help them with their cause to destroy our life. Money and drugs can buy almost anyone.
Even the Portland, Oregon Water Bureau is corrupt, overbilling us for 2.5 years. Our water bill is insanely high, averaging $600 to $850 quarterly, which is what a household of 8 people would average. According to the water company, this is their words. No matter how many times we've called to try to resolve the issue, troubleshooting for a leak and hiring a leak detection company who found a leak on the city side at the water shutoff valve, there appears to be no resolution in sight. We were told by the leak detection company that the leak they found on the city side would not affect our bill, and when we called the Water Bureau, they said we could not have an adjustment or be compensated and our water bill should decrease, which it has not. Tell us the city is not corrupt. This is how these groups work, trying to financially break you. They have tried to suck all of the joy out of our lives.
However, we're just renters. We don't own this house. And there are laws protecting people from overbilling of utility companies. So they're definitely in a violation there.
We believe we were targeted using Statute 426, which takes away all civil rights and can control the life of any citizen.
We believe these gangs and hate groups are heavily funded with infinite financial resources, which is why they have been able to infiltrate powerful positions in society. We believe we have been a target of these gangs and hate groups, being heavily stalked and harassed on a daily basis. And although we have reported multiple incidents to police, filing police reports and communicating with the FBI in regard to the 24/7 stalking issue, nothing has been resolved. And the hate group activity has only become more aggressive.
Kidding me. Okay. It's alright if we have a whiny dog in the background. Makes it more human, right? We believe the gang and hate group stalkers strategically created the poisoning attack against us at our gym. We feel targeted by Statute 426 for good reason. Legacy Meridian, Providence Portland Hospital, and Project Respond were responsible for placing a mental hold on our life on Saturday, March 30th, 2019.
2 days after we went to the emergency room. 2 days of being home, eating good food, and feeling completely recovered.
And checked on over 4 times by police officers and Project Respond people and the hospital. So, on Saturday morning, March 30th, 2019, we were fully recovered, feeling amazing. I was in the yard with our dogs. Amber was in the kitchen making tea. We're ready to seize the day. Our mother was going to be moving into our attic apartment later in the day, which we had been preparing for her all week by removing our stored luggage from the attic to the basement, sweeping and mopping and washing the dust off the walls, and setting up her queen-size bed for her arrival. We had been preparing all month for her arrival. We're over the moon excited to see our mother later in the day, but instead we're ripped out of our home, arrested, and forced IV medical treatment against our will while we were being held prisoner at Providence Portland Hospital for several days.
A few days prior to being taken out of our home and restrained in an ambulance against our free will and civil rights, a similar event occurred outside of our home in the middle of the street, directly outside of our living room window in our pristine Laurelhurst neighborhood. A homeless man was walking through the streets, ripping his clothes off, waving his arms while screaming and yelling. A fleet of police cars and an ambulance immediately arrived on the scene, as if they were right around the corner. They apprehended the obviously mentally ill homeless person and strapped him down to a gurney in the middle of the street and put him in the ambulance. This is a highly unlikely event to occur in our neighborhood. What are the chances of these similar events taking place within days of each other in our pristine, quiet neighborhood? To us, this appears to be a satanic ritual taking place outside of our house, showing us what they were about to do. In occult black magic, a ritual takes place to help create the desired outcome.
Was this a satanic ritual well thought out and planned to manipulate an outcome against our free will? According to David Icke, this is what the satanic occult does all of the time in plain view.
They did come to our home at 10:33 a.m. These are all Masonic numbers.
And there are actually, to break this down a little more, a total of 12 people, including ourselves, were involved. 10 people outside of ourselves. So there were...
on the day that they came to
on
our
the day,
home
four
and
police,
apprehended us.
4 police officers, 2 Project Respond people, a total of 4 ambulance people, right?
The driver and then the person in the back, yeah.
And me and you. Is that 10 or 12? Anyway, do the math. A lot of people were involved for this event is the point.
Mm-hmm. It's just bizarre. I mean, maybe it's just a coincidence.
I don't think so. Nothing to worry about, just a coincidence. I don't think so. With our history of being in the adult entertainment industry for the past 22 years, it is not uncommon for women to be stalked, poisoned, stabbed, beaten nearly to death, raped in the strip clubs, shot or murdered, or have pets murdered. These are all crimes that happen within the industry, and it has become completely unregulated and run by the greedy owners. The increase in danger and crime done to women in the strip club industry is not a crazy notion. Women and even customers have been stabbed, roofied, robbed, and poisoned in strip clubs. This is not an insane notion, and someone who is reporting this should not be considered crazy, but taken very seriously and not accused of trying to harm themselves. On March 30th, 2019, after we were fully recovered and in perfect health after being extremely ill 2 days earlier, we were handcuffed, strapped down on a gurney against our will, and taken into 2 separate ambulances to Providence Portland Hospital. We were split up and separated and would not see each other for 2 days. We would be heavily sedated with IVs, but our higher selves would persevere all of their evil plans. And get this, even stranger, where the ambulance rolled up, graffitied on the wall, it said, Alan Watts. Okay, anyone who knows who Alan Watts is, this is weird. But was it like a reference to Alan Watts, or was it a reference to like, we're gonna like fry your fucking brain? I don't know. Anyway, F-bomb. But the point is, it was really weird. What are the chances? She saw it, I saw it, we both saw it, and we were even like a little bit out of it by that time because it was just like...
The British guy. You're talking about the British guy, Alan Watts.
Yeah,
right?
Alan Watts.
There's like 2 Alan Watts
the
on
real
the
one.
internet, but the real one, he's like passed away now and amazing.
Philosopher, awakened, amazing. When we arrived at the hospital, we were completely separated. I didn't know where Amber was, she didn't know where I was. I didn't know if the dogs were taken care of. We had no communication. I didn't have a phone. I had no way of communicating with anyone at this point on the outside world. I started asking several questions to the medical staff involved in doing this to me. I asked, who has the authority to place a mental hold on my health? They said, the emergency room doctor from Legacy Meridian, who called Project Respond, who are the ones that placed the mental hold on you? I said, who is Project Respond? Who in Project Respond has the authority over my life, over my rights as an American citizen? My civilian rights have been taken away. Their response was, I don't know who Project Respond is. I said, who runs Project Respond? Are these doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists? How can an ER doctor I talked to for maybe 5 minutes make this call? Who at Project Respond has the authority on my life against my will, now the will of the state? Is this a police state? Who is Project Respond? Are they qualified doctors with PhDs? Because these are the only qualified professionals who should be evaluating my mental health, which is fine. I would continue my questions to anyone who came in the room. The response would be, You refused treatment when you were in fatal condition. I said, I recovered, I'm fine, and I was not in fatal condition. I was poisoned, but I was not in fatal condition. I was called by police officers twice in regard to the ER visit and told them we were fine. 2 people at different times came to my house and could see I was fine. This is illegal. What you are doing against my consent, against my will, is illegal. I am not signing anything. I don't consent to what you are doing. Insisting that I be pumped full of whatever you're going to put in my body without my consent. I am into naturopathic medicine, alternative healing. I do not want anything in my body. If I need to see a doctor, I will see my naturopathic doctor. Can I call my doctor? I want to call my doctor. It would take an hour of me asking over and over to talk to my doctor before they finally let me call him. They brought me a phone. I left him a message and told him what had happened. He was not in the office and I had to call his answering service and relay a message that stated that we were taken to the hospital against our will, strapped down with Velcro restraints with a mental hold placed on both of us. We could not leave the hospital and we are being forced to have IV treatment against our will. The first doctor that came into my room had no desire to set me free. I told him that this was not my choice and I was not in agreement with what they were forcing us to do. I asked him questions. An hour or so later, a different doctor came in who was much nicer. I asked him all the questions I had been asking. I told him that we were in the adult entertainment industry for 22 years, and it was not uncommon for women to be stalked or poisoned, that the 2 of us thinking we had been poisoned should not be deemed as mental illness. I told him this was against my rights as a citizen. I do not choose to be here. The state-funded Project Respond is now in control of all of my decisions, and this is illegal. I have a lawyer and will be taking legal action against anyone responsible for this happening to me.
Actually, we need a lawyer.
I thought we had one, but no. He's out of state, so he doesn't practice Oregon law, so he couldn't do it. They said the social worker would be here to evaluate me. When the redheaded 60-year-old social worker came into my room, she asked me a series of questions. She asked me to recap why I was here. I said my twin sister and I are in the adult entertainment industry, and because of this, we have had issues with being stalked. We believe that our water at our gym had been poisoned because our locker was broken into. We went to the ER but started feeling better and went home. We were fine and recovered when we were ripped out of our home against our will and brought here.
2 days later.
Right.
Apparently, the mental hold was not in place yet, even though the police officers that trespassed into our backyard claimed they had a warrant with a mental hold on us at 10:33 a.m.
I said, I was told by the police officers that arrested me that the emergency room doctor from Legacy Meridian and Project Respond were the ones that placed the mental hold, and now suddenly Providence is the one placing the hold. The response was the emergency room doctor at Legacy Meridian couldn't place the hold. I hadn't signed any paper saying he was my doctor or authorized to treat me, and it was the social worker at Providence who placed the hold. I said the police came to our house with a supposed warrant and a mental hold, which is why we're here. So what's the story? What's the catch? Like, they didn't quite sort this all out now, did they? Suddenly, it was the social worker at Providence Portland Hospital who placed the mental hold. I said, why would she do that? She can see that my cognitive function is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with my mental well-being. There are plenty of people who are mentally ill that actually do need help. I am not one of them. I want to be released. I will be calling my attorney. I am taking legal action. This is illegal. How can a social worker make that call? She's not a doctor. She's not a psychiatrist. She saw me for 5 minutes. Down the hall, a crazy person came through the doors. He was screaming through the hospital that there was going to be an earthquake. Biggest earthquake ever in Portland. He was cussing at all of the doctors, nurses, and called the CNA who was watching me a cunt. Yep, he called her a cunt, screaming it through the hospital. And I'm the one being apprehended right now. This was obviously mental illness, the irony of it all. I would be pumped full of God knows what with the IV they were administering through my arm. I felt a sedation come over my entire body. One of the doctors asked if they could use a shock device to resuscitate me if I did not wake up. I said yes, but then the CNA watching me to make sure I couldn't leave said something when the doctor left. She said, when people come out of anesthesia, they shock their heart to wake them up, and they get all loopy and silly and say things they don't remember. I looked at her and I said, I don't want to be shocked for any reason. Tell the doctor I'm not in agreement. Do not shock me. The CNA watching me said, don't worry, they're not going to shock you. I made a decision at that point that I was not going to fall asleep. My twin sister and I consciously stayed awake for the duration of the involuntary 3-day stay. Our iron will to survive this vicious attack on our freedom and bodies was great. We were terrified to fall asleep and in fear of our lives at this point. This was an attack on our lives. Now, don't you think if we had tried to do this to ourselves that we would just let it all happen? Like, seriously. The CNA sat in a chair at the entrance of the room I was being held in. She was on her cell phone and had a smartwatch on. These are all recording devices in this day and age. She was talking to someone in the hall, reading out loud all of these terrible health statistics about people with deadly diseases. She said, did you know that blank percent of people have AIDS, hepatitis C, HIV? And she's just reading all of these statistics. Who does that? Who reads these kinds of awful statistics out loud in front of a patient?
Prisoner.
In a room. Someone trying to create fear and paranoia. This was not a normal conversation. I mean, and she was reading this loud. The guy was like across the desk, across the hall. So after being held at the first stop in the hospital, I was told we would be going to the ICU. I said, we don't need to be in the ICU. We are fine. We don't need to be here. We don't need to go to the psych ward. This is against my right as a citizen. They eventually wheeled me to the 5th floor, G5, where I would be held captive until Sunday. If you know anything about G5 technology, supposedly this is like the ultimate mind control. So do you think there's an accident that I got rolled to G5? I don't know. If you're a conspiracy theorist, have a heyday. Amber was taken to the 2nd floor. Apparently she's the more difficult one, which is funny because I was the one that was handcuffed, but she was more difficult. I asked if I could talk to my twin sister, and they allowed us to talk on the phone. I said, are you okay? She said, yes. I said, I'm wide awake. She said, she was too. I said, they're holding us here until Monday because the investigator is out of the office until Monday. I said, I don't think I will be able to sleep in here.
Do you think there's a coincidence they made sure to get us over the weekend on Saturday because everybody would be out of the office until Monday? Definitely not a coincidence.
Nothing to worry about. Just a coincidence.
I told Heather that I was wide awake. Turn on the Kardashians, that'll keep you awake.
I said okay. It was a Kardashian weekend marathon.
Thank God, it was so entertaining.
The new ones, it was the new ones. We're going to keep up with the Kardashians. Honestly, they kind of saved our life. The whole television.
Yeah, because I didn't turn the TV on for like a full day. It was so hard to stay awake.
Yeah. Okay. A day later, I would be interviewed by a social worker at Providence Portland Hospital. This social worker was younger than the other social worker. She was in her late 30s and looked like a hipster, someone I could be friends with. She had Betty Page short bangs and curly hair. I told her about how we had been in the adult entertainment industry for 22 years and how it was a completely unregulated industry full of prostitution, drugs, gangs, and pimps. And this is where the stalking stems from. She said she had worked with sex workers before around 2001 and knew about the industry. I told her the industry changed in 2009 when the laws changed and the women were no longer protected. Not that they were protected much before, but now they were really not protected.
The clubs could take as much money from the women as they wanted and overschedule too many women on a shift, collecting as much in stage fees and created an overly competitive environment that would in the end lead to extra sexual services. It was now full nude, full contact lap dancing and full service behind the curtains.
I told the hipster social worker that we had been reporting the gang stalking with the Portland police officer for several months, but that the stalking never stopped. I told her we thought our stalkers poisoned us, and this was not uncommon in the strip club industry. It was common, and many women had been stabbed, raped, murdered, poisoned, or roofied and stalked. I said we did not feel comfortable with the emergency room doctor at Legacy Meridian and left without being treated. I told her we went home, slept, ate, and recovered, and when I was in my backyard 2 days later, 2 people from Project Respond and 4 huge police officers ambushed me in my backyard and handcuffed me against my will. I felt like a feather in the grips of these extremely strong police officers, so I knew there was no point in trying to escape. I mean, come on, they knew where I lived, for God's sakes. They were going to have their way with us. They had their motive, their cause. I offered to comply with the officers and drive the 2 of us wherever they wanted us to go. They refused to allow us to drive in our own car, but instead humiliated us in front of all of our neighbors on a beautiful sunny Saturday by strapping us down to gurneys with Velcro restraints and loading us in 2 separate ambulances and drove us to Providence Hospital. The hipster social worker said she had never heard of anything like this ever happening to anyone, and the only time anything like this possibly happens is with an attempted suicide. I said that there was no reason for them to do this. 2 people had stopped by our house to check on us at different times after we left Legacy Meridian Hospital, and I had talked to an officer on the phone twice and told her we were fully recovered and A-okay. I said we're A-okay. Those are the words I used. This did not stop them from illegally trespassing into our backyard onto our property. Actually, it was like 3 people stopped by, not 2, so I do believe there were a total of 3. Yeah.
Before they trespassed into our
Right, before they ambushed us. So I yelled for Amber to close the door and lock it, and the officer said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. They claimed we were a harm to ourselves. We told them this was a lie and that there was no reason for them to violate our civil rights. This was illegal. What they were doing was wrong and illegal, and our family was not in agreement with any of it. The hipster social worker listened to our story in disbelief, and I do believe that her and the nicer doctor I saw the previous day were the reason I was set free first.
Even though we've been estranged from many of our family members, it's kind of an off and on deal. So at this moment, we were speaking with them. Thank goodness.
Yeah, they did kind of step up to the plate. Mm-hmm. I, Heather, would be released by the nice Providence doctor on Sunday. The nice doctor said, I see no reason to keep you here. I asked if Amber was going to be released. He did not know. He was not her doctor and did not know her situation. I told him it was the exact same situation as mine. I asked if I could go see her. He said yes. He said that he didn't know what they were going to do. I thanked him for releasing the hold. The CNA watching my room left. I was free. I called Amber and told her I was coming down to her room.
We were able to communicate with the hospital phones.
Yeah.
To our rooms.
Thank God. The CNAs that they call sitters stay in each of our rooms and guard us all day and night, like we were criminals under arrest.
The CNAs are not qualified in the health field. They don't have to have a degree of any kind. They're not educated, and we do not know how their background is screened. They have access to our private medical records and were able to read back to us what the nurse or doctor had said. The CNAs always had their cell phones out, and who knows if they were recording any of this or if they were a part of any hate groups getting paid to make our life a living hell, capturing video of us. Ha ha, so funny. Our privacy rights were violated. Doctors spoke to us when CNAs were in the room revealing confidential patient-doctor information in front of these CNAs, while they had their cell phones out and actively texting and possibly recording. This is highly illegal. Our privacy and civil rights were violated. Our lives had been turned upside down.
When I was set free, I went down to Amber's room. We would have to survive one more night in here to make it through until Monday morning because they were not releasing her mental hold. Together, we would watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians weekend marathon to stay awake. We would trick our bodies into staying awake. We knew we had to get out of here. I was not going to leave Amber. Amber told me that whenever she laid down and closed her eyes, the CNA would get up and leave, and a 6-foot-tall, fit black man would come in her room. He looked like a gangster thug. She sat up and he said, "Oh, I thought you were sleeping," and he left the room. She decided to pretend to go to sleep to see if he would come back in. And he did. She sat up in bed and put him to work. She asked for water, crackers, juice, applesauce, and for them to turn the lights on. He finally left and was replaced by a female CNA. The female CNA was watching Amber like a hawk to see if she was going to go to sleep.
It was super creepy.
Right?
She's like right there, just staring holes through me.
You know when you can just like feel like someone watching you or like that. You can just feel it. Everyone has that ability. When Amber closed her eyes, she said the CNA was staring at her, watching her intensely, practically staring holes through her. She was sitting to the left of Amber's bed, right next to her, just a few inches away. She kept watching Amber to see if she was going to go to sleep. And when Amber looked like she was going to go to sleep, the 5'9", athletic, strong-built CNA took out a 6-foot-long, thick phone charging cord, like a landline telephone cord you would use at home. The CNA wrapped the cord around her hand and watched Amber to see if she was going to go to sleep. Amber sat up and stared at the walls and decided to stay awake.
We both stayed awake for 3 days for fear that they were going to murder us due to the peculiar behavior of the CNAs and the hate groups that seemed to have infiltrated the hospital. It made no sense on why we were even here being held against our will with forced IVs and babysat by uneducated, unqualified CNAs who had access to our medical files. They had their cell phones out the entire time, pointing them at us like they were taking photos or video. This is what these groups do. We believe that capturing us on video or photo equals a payday of some sort. There wasn't even a door on the bathroom, it was like a shower curtain.
And they were monitoring our bathroom trips.
Yeah.
It's just like awful. Like,
Right.
did you have a BM? Like, seriously, like, leave me alone. Like, this is already like against my will. You don't need to know my. And I lost my train of thought. Crap. Okay. All the videos. Is there a database?
Oh yeah.
Especially for us?
Right.
Like, I mean, it's
Like-
obviously like the cell phones, the videos, like at the gym, it was really, really bad. So seriously, we're not that famous. Like, we're well known, but like, we're not Britney Spears. So the whole let's get a picture and video them and all of that, something's up with this whole video thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're being stalked, where's the video going? Where's the
Exactly.
photo? Where's all this stuff going? Where's this footage? Who's at the top? Who's responsible? One of the doctors came into the room and we asked him why Amber was still on IVs when her salt levels were normal. That was the supposed reason they had brought us here against our will in the first place. When the doctors received the results of our blood work from Legacy Meridian, our salt levels were dangerously low.
That's because we'd been poisoned.
That's what we said. That's because we were poisoned. I said we ate, we slept, we were fine now. Lots of activated coconut charcoal. We were feeling great until we were illegally ripped from our home and forced to come here with a mental hold, which is against our constitutional rights as U.S. citizens. We were pumped full of IVs without any blood work, taken to see what our levels were when we were first brought here, which were normal, we believe.
The IVs we're being pumped full of is why nothing is normal now.
I added, Amber's levels were normal this morning. Why is she still on IVs? The doctor's response was that her levels were at 30. The nurse said 35 to 45 was normal. They said she went up too fast and they had to bring her back down. And if it wasn't done right, she could suffer irreversible brain damage.
So wait, let's get this straight. They were able to lower our electrolyte levels.
Because they said they pumped us full of IVs, or whatever was in them, sedatives for sure, blurry vision, sleepy, like all of it, even in our food, by the way, evil. So they pumped us full of all of this stuff, got our blood work to where they wanted it, said they had to hold us there and correct it. And then as they were correcting it, they said, oh, no.
Oh, no, that was too fast.
Oh, that was too fast. We have to lower them back down again. So they have the ability to lower your levels. And so they started lowering them again. And we said, this is ridiculous. Why can't she just be taken off of them? And they actually said, the doctor said that what they were doing could cause irreversible brain damage. What were they doing?
And this is against our will. They do not have our permission to do a treatment on my body that could cause irreversible brain damage.
And if we didn't cooperate, we could be locked up for 180 days in a psych ward, and then they could do God knows what to us within that environment. So we knew we had to get out of here.
The doctor refused to take me off of the IVs, and I was forced to continue the treatment regardless of my trepidation.
She had to continue to endure the IV torture.
It made me feel absolutely terrible.
I know.
Whatever was in that IV, aren't IVs supposed to make you feel better? No, this was quite the opposite.
Exactly. We're still actually suffering the consequences from those IVs. Exhausted. We just haven't sprung back yet. She had to continue to endure the IV torture, which honestly made us both feel worse, not better. After many hours of enduring the IV, Amber got feverish all over from head to toe. Amber had to continue to endure the IV torture, which honestly made us both feel worse, not better. After many hours of enduring the IVs, Amber got feverish all over from head to toe. She freaked out and started exclaiming, "My brain is burning, my brain is burning."
That's because my brain was burning.
Something is wrong.
It was like sizzling.
I ripped the IV out of her arm and refused to allow this to be done to her any longer. What did they want to do? They already mentioned that they wanted to do some sort of shock therapy, and they wanted to get our permission to do this early on. That was the first stop. And now they're saying that what they're doing could cause irreversible brain damage. Obviously, they really want to harm our mental health, our brain, our knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge to share with the world. So somebody wants to silence us. And what is the best way to silence someone? Screw up their head, screw up their brain, mess it up. I ripped out the IVs and started tapping Amber on the back of the neck and spine to neutralize the negative effect that was happening to her. She tapped the side of her hand. These are acupuncture meridian points that help rebalance the body. We tapped for 30 minutes until the burning subsided, but it would take about 3 hours before the burning throughout her brain and body would stop. Oh, it would subside. I don't know that it stopped.
I just felt awful.
Yeah, it was terrible. Would make it through another night without sleeping, and come Monday morning, I started making phone calls to an attorney we had worked with in the past. He advised me on whom to call for help. The only thing that I was concerned with about calling organizations in Portland was the town is full of corruption and predominantly Democratic. From our experiences thus far and observations, the corruption has infiltrated society at the highest levels. We do not want to be wrongly held against our will. What we need was a really good attorney who cannot be bought by these hate groups who appear to have an infinite flow of money. Bribes and payoffs. We have to find someone who can't be bought. Someone with integrity, probably a Republican, just someone who is not gonna be bought. Mm-hmm. It's hard to come by.
Mm-hmm. And our affiliation in the adult entertainment industry makes it very taboo for anyone to even want to to represent us.
We're
people
judged.
too.
No, but
seriously,
we're
whistleblowers.
Yeah, exactly. We're very judged, but our body of work is amazing. Like
we're artists. We're art.
And we've written a book. We're writing another one about
Right.
the industry, our experiences. No one's ever done this before. How would 22 years in the industry? You know what we know about this industry? Like, we have to share this knowledge. As I was in the hall making calls, as if an angel sent him down the hall, I saw my nice doctor who was making his morning rounds. I stopped him for a moment. I said, "They haven't released my sister Amber. They have her on a mental hold. She is in the exact same situation as I am, but they won't release her and we don't know why. We asked for a different doctor and we requested you. Can you be her doctor?" He said he didn't know if that was possible, but he would talk to the doctors.
We were now waiting for more doctors to review me. We were in the room and I said, "I need to get up and stretch." We decided to do some Bikram yoga, a practice that we've been practicing for years. We both stood up and found a space in the tiny cramped room. We started pranayama, deep breathing exercise, 2 sets of 10. Breathe in, breathe out. We went through the standing series of postures, and when the doctors came into the room, we were both doing triangle posture, which is warrior pose. We stood up and turned to the doctors and said, "We're doing some yoga." They said, "That was good." We shared with them why we had thought we were poisoned and told them our adult industry background. We said we were perfectly fine and felt good and that this was against our will and unnecessary. We said if we need a doctor, we will treat with our naturopathic doctor who has access to a lab and can run tests if needed. He said, "Why don't you just come here?" We said we don't have insurance because it was too expensive and that we have a trusting relationship with our naturopathic doctor of many years. They agreed that the hold could be lifted, but that it was up to the investigator. She was to be arriving soon. There was one more doctor on the team that had to see us, and if she was in agreement that the hold could be lifted, they would share it with the investigator.
That's 3 doctors for her. I think it's because we requested a doctor change, and so they put a team probably to protect the doctors.
Whatever, who knows what the
Anyway,
that's
the
just a
point
guess.
The point is it went from 1 doctor to 3 doctors.
A female doctor came in our room a while later. We were still doing yoga. We told her the backstory of our adult industry past and how what we feel may have happened to us was not uncommon in regard to being poisoned. By the end of our conversation, she was in agreement that the mental hold should be lifted. The mental health investigator arrived a while later, and she was icy cold. She was not convinced that she should lift the hold, and she said that it was up to the doctors. We told her the doctors said it was up to her, and she said that it was up to the doctors. We told her the doctors said it was up to the investigator, and she said that it was up to the doctors. I asked if she could talk to the doctors. She said she was going to talk to the social worker next and see what she had to say. I went out into the hall to try to hunt down one of the doctors who had the authority to release the hold, but instead I found the hipster social worker. I ran up to her and I said, "The investigator is not going to release the hold. I mean, I don't know for sure, but she didn't seem like she was going to." She responded that the doctors were the ones that had to lift it, and I said the doctors told us the investigator had to lift it. I asked if she could talk to the investigator, and I got on the phone right away to call one of the organizations my attorney had recommended. The investigator went into Amber's room, and I heard her say, "I'm lifting the hold." She exited the room as fast as she entered, and just like that, it was over.